Welcome to Pendulum Swings, the podcast brought to you by Pendulum Growth. Today we're going to be talking about alcohol, our relationship to it, why more people than ever are quitting, how we can reduce our intake, and any tips and hints that we can use to do that. Hope you enjoy. Hi, welcome. My name is Mark Parfit. This is
Tom Molyneux
and
Paul McDonald.
And today we're going to be talking about alcohol, our relationship to it, why so many people are quitting, what are we doing to reduce, what we can do to reduce our intake of alcohol, so us as a team, and the sort of addressing any hints, tips or things that we think could be useful for you to take away. So interested lads to getting started now in terms of our relationships. Who wants to jump in? Who wants to start around what your relationship has been with alcohol since maybe go back from the very sort of earlier introduction to it to where you're at now a little bit? Tom?
Go on, mate. Yeah, so mine's been varied really. I would say over, how long I've been drinking for now? Probably well over 10 years now, isn't it?
Makes me feel old.
It makes me feel old. Varied, so I suppose in your teenage years there's that introductory period to alcoholism, that where you start going to parties and then eventually you're old enough to actually go out and drink legally, which I think most young lads will go through that early period. And then into your kind of formative 20s, you continue in that culture. I think obviously university is a big factor for people during that age. For me, I didn't go to university, but you've got friends who are going, and that culture, you get dragged into it. And then I think through your mid-20s and certainly into later 20s for me is where I've started to actually recognise the impact that alcohol has. Even if it's not massively detrimental, there are certain small factors that you can definitely sense where it'll have a negative impact on you.
Yeah.
And then probably where I am now, probably my lowest alcohol intake I would say that I've had since actually starting drinking all those years ago. So it's been varied. I would say it's definitely not been a complete negative for me. I've had some great experiences while drinking alcohol. I think there have been some really good times in my life where actually alcohol may have actually been a big factor in contributing to some of the positive elements of those periods, but I think when I look at it now, it's definitely a net negative overall in terms of where my relationship with it is now, and I don't really see any positives in drinking anymore, although it is still something I do sporadically. So it's changed massively, I would say.
So for you, when the lows outweigh the highs, it's something that you've started to reduce, is that what you're saying, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think we'll probably move on to this later in the podcast as well, but it's not been an intentional thought okay, I'm going to reduce alcohol. It's more a case of increasing the positive elements of my life, and it's sort of just pushed alcohol out the way a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting.
I definitely think seeing the weekend as more of a productive opportunity has resulted in alcohol intake dropping.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest drop off, I think, in actually just looking at the weekend as a way of developing, spending time with family and friends, doing things that are more positive. Early mornings, like we do on a Saturday and a Sunday a lot now as well, and that almost forces your hand to remove alcohol in many ways. So yeah, really varied, I would say, over the last 10-15 years probably, with alcohol. Yeah, for me definitely. How about yourself, Paul?
Similar to yourself, and I'd say similar to probably quite a lot of people really, when you start leaving like secondary school, going into like sixth form, college or whatever, that's like my earliest sort of memories of drinking. And we used to have like parties like every maybe 6 to 8 weeks, where at the end of the term you'd have a sixth form party. Funnily enough, where we are today is where the pub used to be, like literally on this road, and this was the car park for it. So they're like my sort of earliest memories. And I think to Tom's point as well, I don't want this to just be alcohol is bad or like we regret everything I've ever done with alcohol, because I don't, because I do have some really good fond memories and experiences, and alcohol's probably played a little bit of a part of that, or maybe enhanced, you know, some of these experiences. So yeah, generally like through that age of maybe like 16 to 18, that's when it really started for me. And then obviously then going into further education, university. Again, I'm a big football fan, following Everton home and away.
See how that made you want to drink, like?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, nothing's changed there.
Yeah.
But you felt like you were in these environments, and that drink was just a natural thing you had to sort of do. Mm-hmm. You weren't sort of held against the barrel, but it was like when you went to parties, when you watched the football, even going to gigs, it's a no-brainer you drink.
Yeah.
And you probably didn't really think that much about the next day, because again, as a student, or you know, as someone of that age, you'd probably drink again the next day. So it was like, you know, we used to have a period when we were at uni where I was going to say Thursday till Sunday, but it probably wasn't, because there was probably times when you'd be out Monday, Tuesday, when you could drink most nights of the week. And again, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but I think when you are younger, your ability just to bounce back from having a drink, your resilience, I thought, was a lot higher than what it is as you start to get older. Yeah. Or it could just be that thing of just powering through and, you know, then eventually crashing. But for me, it was a regular staple of my, you know, that age of teens into real early to mid 20s, and it probably wasn't until I got into like a first proper job that, you know, you still maybe did drink of a weekend, maybe of a Friday, Saturday, but it did reduce, you know, quite a lot. And if we, you know, just to sort of, you know, bring this story to where we are today, I think there's a lot of factors which have led us to here over the last few years, which we will probably get into a little bit more, and the sort of like tangibles to take away from that. But I get to a point now where the trade-off isn't worth it. Yeah. If that ability to bounce back the next day is not there for me when you've had, you know, quite a number of drinks, and even that, the volume of drinks as well, you know, that's probably something for us to talk about today. But my ability to do that is not great. The next day, you know, habits that I've created over a number of, you know, weeks, months, it's difficult to kick into them, even though they are a habit. For example, if you are exercising, your performance levels do drop, your energy levels do drop. If you are following a diet, the next day that falls off, and sometimes it's not just one day, that can lead to a number of days. So yeah, it's led to me, you know, doing a lot of thinking, a lot of talk with like yourself, with my partner, and people around my sort of age, whether that's close friends or acquaintances that I see every now and then, to ask them what are they thinking about it. And I was actually quite surprised that a lot of people are having these thoughts about questioning alcohol, whereas 5-10 years ago it was a real staple, and you think, if I do this I must have a drink. It's actually unpicking some of that stuff and questioning, is it worth it? You know, not completely going the other way and quitting, because that's like one thing I'd say as well, is that when we're talking about reducing it, it's not like we're alcoholics and looking for sobriety here. It's just maybe a bit of a break from, or actually I'm only going to introduce it when.
I think we represent a reasonable section of British society at the moment. I don't think we've got to probably caveat that, as we do with most things, and say that we're probably not at this extreme level of, but we're probably on occasion, I would say, can binge drink. Yeah. I mean, which is a very UK thing to do, which is we don't
sounds like the cliche thing,
and then when you're at the weekend, absolutely smash it.
It's our culture.
Yeah.
The drinking is massive part of our culture. It surprises me. Sometimes when you go on holiday and you see other cultures, you spot the Brits a mile off. Yeah. You always do, because when we maybe go to some of these places, that's not what they maybe have a glass of wine with a meal. Yeah. And that's it. But for us, it's to excess. Yeah. But no, mate, I cut it on you there.
Do you know what? No, I think to excess is a good way to tee me up. I think my relationship with alcohol is older than Tom, which makes me feel really sad. So I probably had a drink since
we don't have to put numbers on that, by the way. Use your imagination.
Yeah. But no, I will. I'm happy to say 28 years probably of, you know, drinking in one form or another. I remember my first introduction to drinking, when it wasn't like I was having a little drink of alcohol at a family party or whatever, but I was probably about 14 or 15 and drinking on a field with a load of kids, I was 15 as well, obviously. It'd be weird otherwise. And just being able to try and get a load of alcohol, get the cheapest thing, I think might have been cider, might have been cold
It's like one of them big, like, 3
yeah,
litre bottles.
3 litre bottles and stuff like
acid.
that. Stand around the fire.
Lamborghini back in my
I drank that in uni, I think it must
still smell it now.
Yeah, it was called Pulse or something else. And it was, you know, it was like basically drain cleaner, it was cider or whatever. And we'd stand around a fire and drink, and that was my first sort of, everyone became a little less inhibited. It was all school friends, maybe girls we knew and all that kind of stuff. And that was your first sort of taste of it. And then as you hit college, going out a bit more, obviously, you know, I can say this now, but at the time, like fake IDs, getting into clubs and bars and stuff like that. And then uni, where you sort of do it, I suppose, more legitimately and stuff. In uni, it was very bingey kind of culture. It was like you go out all of the probably mostly unpopular nights that you do. So where you go out Friday, Saturday when you work, you go out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there'd be all
Thursday was student night in April, wasn't it, generally? Yeah. But like Wednesday you'd have, it was called medication, that was my area, but I'd have other things pop up, and then Monday night there'd be something.
Yeah, something at the union, something on the Tuesday, something on the Wednesday. And the way we gravitated towards was the cheapest drinks, so £1 a pint, or you know, or 50p a shot, or whatever. We'd end up in these kind of places because obviously you catering to your wallet and trying to probably drink as much as you possibly can for. And again, there wasn't anything at the time, no literature. It wasn't really talked about that much about the idea of like your consumption being contained in any way, shape or form. It was very much go out and get blotto, get like blackout drunk. And then if I think about when I moved from uni into my work life and stuff like that, everyone used to work for the weekend. Everyone would be Friday night, straight on to drinking, and you probably drink through Friday, get up Saturday, do the same thing Saturday night, and then recover. And that was a sort of recover and repeat kind of activity and stuff like that. So for me, my relationship with alcohol, from a social point of view, it was really good for activating, being able to talk to girls, being able to, you know, get on with my mates and be less inhibited. Conversely, on the other end of that, being regretful, because I wasn't able to be able to care. So what might have been charming at 3 pints in was obnoxious at 6 pints in and 9 pints in, you know. And that's where you have, and I was introduced to this by my wife because I didn't really think about it. I didn't really examine my life in my 20s very much. But in my 30s, Katie introduced me to beer fear, which was the idea that you're waking up on a Sunday morning and like, oh God, what have I done? Bit of a tightness of chest and all that. As soon as she introduced me to that, it was every week. Every time that we had a drink, I'd wake up like, oh God, what's happened? What have I done? And I'd have to run through the activity in my head. I'd have to go through all right, you went out at this time, you did this. Did you do anything really embarrassing? Did you say anything really embarrassing? A lot of the times the answer was no. Sometimes the answer was yes. Sometimes it required a phone call to apologise, you know.
The thing what I'm just going to add in there is even when you know you've not done anything wrong, when you're aware of that, it will happen then every time after a drink.
Absolutely.
Because probably previous traumas and previous, you know,
absolutely.
Apologies
you could possibly do. I think I've fallen downstairs in front of my boss at a works event, you know, where we're all supposed to be drinking. I've done all kinds of silly things, you know. You make those mistakes in your youth and stuff. But I think as well, and I don't know how much we've addressed this, I'll fold on top of that, there's a culture of drinking within my family, and again, not like they're not alcoholics, although some of them will probably say that they were, but they're not. But when we get together, whether it's a good situation or a bad, I remember when my nan and granddad passed away, first thing we did as a family, got together in my auntie's house and started drinking. It was the first thing we did. I remember when 9/11 happened, it was the weirdest thing.
Celebrating it, were you?
No, oh God, no. But I was at my mum's house, and my friends were there, and my mum came and said, "Oh my God, look at what's happening!" And we were all in so much shock. And then I remember, it's the weirdest thing. My mum just started passing out drinks to my friends, and it was at Blue WKD, and we were in our 20s or whatever. But I remember and we were drinking, and I was thinking, this is our reaction to trauma.
Yeah.
This is our built-in reaction in my family to go, right, something real is really happening, sandbag it with alcohol.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Take the edges off the situation.
Yeah.
And conversely, when there's something good happening, you have a drink and stuff like that. And I think I think I talked to you about this the other day, and I was at a barbecue, and I purposefully went to not drink. So I did everything that you would do to not drink. I took the car, the boys were there, my sons and stuff like that. So I wasn't really going to have a big drink anyway if I did. But people were asking me, you know, drink? No, I'm fine. I'm not drinking. Why are you not drinking? Oh well, I'm just, you know. So the reason I came with was I'm trying to watch my weight. I'm just trying to be a bit more healthy, and all this kind of stuff. I was getting combated with facts. Oh, yeah, it'll only be water weight, you're losing a couple of days. I was like, yeah, but it impacts me habits and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And again, it was like, sometimes people reflect their attitude of drinking onto you.
Definitely. That's all internal dialogue they've told themselves. Because the likelihood is they've probably had similar thoughts or been in a similar situation to you, but how they, I suppose, maybe kid themselves or think, oh, I can justify doing this is say, oh, just a bit of water weight that. I'll be good for the next few days and sweat it out or lose it or whatever.
And some people can do that. And I don't even really have a problem with people drinking, but it's interesting. And I've been this person quite a lot. Why aren't you drinking?
You're a bore.
Yeah, you're a bore, all this kind of stuff. And when I've had to analyse it a little bit, I thought, actually, what I'm saying is, I'm nervous about you not drinking. I'm nervous that I'll be drinking and I'll let myself go and you'll be sober and you won't let yourself go in the same way. So we won't be in the same boat. That's what, you know, you know, it's really interested me, that kind of activity and that kind of thing I've done in the past. I've really worked to analyse it a little bit and think about that. And I've done that before now, where I've actively been wary of the person in the room who's not drinking when I'm drinking, because I'm thinking you're mentally recording everything that's going on, and then you've got to think, well, why am I worried about you mentally recording everything that's going on more than my behaviour's probably not as appropriate as it should be or as correct as it should be. So yeah, that's I mean, I know that's a little bit more detailed than you lads, but I guess I've probably got a lot more experience just because I've been on the planet longer.
There's a few things for me, mate, that, you know, that are just in sync, really. And I think, like, one thing for me is that coming from a position of not naturally being that confident, especially at a younger age, having a drink really did help that. Even if it is just within your own friendship circle or around your family, or, you know, what's the right way of saying it, when you're trying to find a partner, or, you know, just you growing up at that age and you do the things that you're doing. It did help by having a drink, but also you knew it's probably a bit more of a leveler because everyone's in the same position here where they are, you know, having a drink and whatever. And it's something where is that changes as you get older, as you find someone, you settle down. It's one less reason or one less, you know, potential way that you've got to find yourself having a drink. You don't have to do that anymore. So yeah, the confidence one was something for me when I was thinking back, maybe why did you drink so much? It was because of that, and not because I don't know, maybe in a way you did change as a person, because when you reflected on it, you're a bit like, that's not me, that. When you know, some of these daft things that you've done, I've done them all as well. And when you reflect back on it and try and rationalise it in your head, it's like, I wouldn't have done that when I was sober, I wouldn't have said that, or, you know, say, fell over, or be sick and attack, or whatever, I wouldn't have done that. But it's this, you know, I suppose this element, this boost that giving us a drink, you know, gives us, and I'd say closely linked with that. I don't know if you sort of felt like this as well, but it used to give me escapism, especially when you've had support at Everton, right? But we've mentioned that. When, like, for me, you know, university was great. After leaving that, there was a bit of a lull.
Oh yeah.
And then, oh God, what am I going to do with my life? And for me, like, my degree was in journalism, and, you know, we can talk about that another time, but it just didn't happen for me. So I had to go and work for a bank, because it was that conversation from my dad of, right, you've left uni now, what are you going to do? Like, you can't just sit here and do nothing, even if it's just get a job and, you know, earn some money. You know, it's better than doing nothing. And then when you're in that work environment, that escapism really did come in for me then, because you're already at a bit of a low. You're seeing some of your friends maybe doing what you were doing, or the friends that you have now spreading the wings, or they've gone back to where they were actually, you know, originally from. And like your school friends have probably drifted from them a little bit, so it's that escapism really come in then, that Friday feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the people who you're now doing that with are probably the people that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you've maybe fell out with people who, but it's your work friends, because they can relate to the situation you're in. They'll probably encourage you in the same way. And again, don't get me wrong, I used to love when we used to work in the office Monday to Friday, off the weekend, when you got to Friday evening, someone said, oh, you're on the way home, we'll go and have a pint. Oh yeah, a bit of footy on, or the box, brilliant. Yeah. Or it'd be like weather, you know, so the audio, the video, people could see the sun's coming in, be weather like this. And you think, oh yeah, we'll have a barbecue, or we'll get out in a beer garden. Oh yeah, spot on, great. And I think for me, because I still do work, and obviously the way we work now has changed with hybrid working and things, and working from home. There is some days when it's sunny and you think, oh, that'd be brilliant, that, but we don't work in the office anymore, so we just have to. It just remains as a nice thought. But yeah, escapism come from me, and it's am I where I want to be? Work-wise, am I where I want to be, maybe, I suppose, like mentally? Because again, when I started work at 21, 22, there probably was things that I needed to work through, but maybe wasn't ready, wasn't mature enough to do that. So you run from it, and the drink helps do that.
So I suppose I haven't had that for a huge portion of my life. I haven't really self-examined. I didn't really even bump up against this idea of being self-aware and self-examining until later in my life, and you just sort of operate on a natural, and see if this resonates with you, on a natural sort of like reaction to things and stuff like that. So, and what do I mean by that? So I mean, like, I go out, maybe get drunk. We use the term smash, don't you? Battered or whatever. You go out and get wrecked. Next day, I'd be dealing with it, and I'd be thinking, this is the normality of it. Picking up the records you've either the night before, or selling everyone the stories of behaving a certain way, or getting thrown out, or something. Yeah. I had to paint this picture like I was allowed to, or anything like that. I really wasn't, but I had a lot of fun, and when I'm probably a naturally more outgoing person anyway, and then when you add alcohol to that, that's when I'll go above and beyond. Yeah. I think we used to go to a club years and years ago, and they used to have dancers in cages, and I used to get up in the cage and dance and do all kinds of stupid stuff like that. So that naturally I go to that next level. So picking that up, and then you have to almost, it becomes a bit of your character and your personality. Oh, what's he going to do now, or what, all this kind of stuff. And it leads into a thing that you really can struggle to pull out of sometimes.
Do you feel like you have to one up as well a little bit?
Yeah, overcorrect and do more of it and all this kind of stuff. And there'd be a sweet spot when you were drinking where you're not setting, again, see if this resonates, where you become, I think, heightened at things. So I know it's probably not correct, but mentally you're probably just relaxing a bit. So I always think after a couple of pints, I'm better at pool than when I'm sober at pool. and the reason I say that is because I would always naturally go to that. And I think it's just because I would be less hesitant, and I'd just be more likely to smack in and it'd go in. But then there would be a sweet spot, and then I'd go a little bit past it, and
pool abilities are on the floor.
It's on the floor.
Mark the shark.
Yeah.
In another life, mate, he's going around pool.
Yeah, that's it. Just having exactly 3 to 4 pints, and then that's it. But it's the same with everything. I feel like probably my dancing ability, everything, my ability to sing at karaoke heightens, I think, at a certain level of alcohol, and then tails off as I can't coherently put my thoughts together after a certain point. So that's probably what I'd use it for. I'd use it as a little bit of a turbo boost, or a superpower I felt in my head. And what I'm really talking about is inhibitions, just like you said before. Just the ability to do those things that I can't do sober, just because I suppose the cringy or embarrassing nature of things. Yeah, I just think that's really interesting to me. But I think as I've got older as well, it's flipped the other way a little bit. I suppose we've reflected on, you know, some of the good things and maybe some of the embarrassing things in it. But why do you think? Because it seems like we're going through a period now where a lot of people are quitting more.
Yeah.
Or reducing their alcohol intake a lot more. I think I mentioned to you yesterday or this morning, I walked through town. One of the things I noticed about there was a lot more young people in the streets, but they weren't drinking. They were just sitting around and casually talking and playing, recording things on the phone. I even commented to my wife, I was like, there's a lot of people out. And she went, young people don't drink the way that we used to drink. They wouldn't be out getting just drunk on the streets like we do. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think probably social media, mate. You know, you mentioned them being on the phones there. I think there's a lot more out there now that's influencing people around the negative impacts of drinking. I think we've had like obviously the government will release information, the NHS will release information, and they'll put data out there. But we know people are much more heavily influenced by what's on the phones now, and I think you see a lot now where people are discouraging others not to drink, or they're actually highlighting things that you can do instead. So I think social media, mate, and I think people are looking up now to influencers, and I don't think there's a big drinking culture amongst that kind of area either. So I think social media is a big one, mate.
Okay, interesting.
Probably one of the positive impacts social media's had, I think. I know a lot of the content I use on the platforms that I'll go on, there's a lot around removing yourself from alcohol, and how it can be damaging over short, medium and long term as well. So I think we try and talk about how social media can be positive. I think that would be one thing for me anyway. What I see on my platforms that I use, I think it's having an impact. Yeah.
I think that to me that what you mentioned there, Mark's probably two parts, and I do agree with Tom. I think with younger people, I think their, if we want to say maybe escapism or their route might not be drink, it might be other things, and just probably leave to people's imagination what the other things might be, because there's tons of stuff out there. I don't think it's a case that children are not getting drunk or they're not taking drugs or they're not smoking. I think they probably are. I remember when we've gone through things like COVID and lockdowns, there was a little bit more of a movement, should we say, because you couldn't go into pubs, you couldn't go into clubs, where people would just rent a gaff, as they'd say, probably showing me, my age there. But just so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So I do think younger people maybe are, but maybe not as out in the open as maybe the way we did, as we were, growing up. I agree with Tom's point. I think there's a lot of people out there now who are, I suppose, influential, and, who a lot of people actually look up to, and, in my opinion, they have a big responsibility. So it's nice that they are spreading messages around maybe not drinking or trying to do the right things. I think for me the message shouldn't be that you don't drink whatsoever, because it's not a bad thing. It's just maybe limiting what you're actually taking in.
Is it more realistic, do you think?
To
think about it as, instead of just cutting it all out entirely, because you might end up just going the other way with it, or?
I think when we look at other things, like I suppose like smoking, dieting, if you just crash or go completely the other way and go cold turkey, I'd imagine the numbers are quite slim of people who've been able to keep that up over a consistent period. Yeah. It'll be a case of, reducing over time, and the more that you do that, eventually it might get to a point where you don't. And that's probably what my point was for me with COVID and the lockdowns, and also I'd say working from home. It reduced my opportunities to drink. Because when I was at home during COVID with my missus in a flat, don't really drink at home. Not a big drink. Tried it a couple of times just because you felt like but we don't drink at home. That opportunity of maybe being in the office, being a hard week and saying to lads, let's go to the pub, or even we'll go to footy at the weekend, or we'll go to a gig, that had all gone. and you've gone back to it, and instead of that, you know, thankfully, you know, we were able to go out and exercise, really got into running, and, you know, looking after yourself and thinking, I don't want to lose this. I remember saying to Tom that once we get out of this lockdown, I don't want to just throw all this hard work out the window. And again, I don't think I'm speaking for everyone in that, but I think there was some people during COVID where there's been a bit of a reset of, I'm going to, you know, I don't really miss it. And these things that I've replaced it with have actually really helped me. So I think what we've been through over the last couple of years, and I'd say that young people might be in that, but I think maybe more people our age, so let's say 25 plus, have had to go through a bit of a reset with drink. And some people, you know, maybe, I know from speaking to yourself, mate, like you don't mind having a drink in the house, so it's maybe didn't change too much.
Built a bar in my house at one point, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely a different sort of atmosphere, I guess.
Yeah. But I think, you know, I think some of them opportunities to go out and drink have now been replaced with other things. And again, when you hear them, you have, I think sometimes when you make a change, you have a feeling internally. And then maybe when you see someone who's influential, who you're really a big fan of, says the same things, it probably just reinforce it again of bloody hell, they're saying it as well. I might have to think about it. I think, like for me, the one that I always think of is Andrew Huberman. And he's very clever with his videos and his titles and his captions, and you think, God, I'll have to watch that. And you watch one of his videos when he talks about what alcohol does to you and the impact it has on your sleep and your health, and you think, bloody hell, I'm never going to touch it again. And that's not, I don't think that's the way we should.
Yeah.
But some people might need to be scared straight a little bit if the problem's, you know, out of control. But yeah, I think just maybe the last, is it now, back to 2019, 4 years or so, it's really, for me, and I think for a lot of people, changed what they think about alcohol and the relationship with it, and maybe having to make some changes.
I think I agree. I agree with you. Although I might probably went the other way with with the pandemic. I was locked in. I had a bar. I had like a bit of I was able to stream from my bar. So I used to run like quiz nights on a Saturday night for everyone who was at home and stuff like that, and it became a bit of an event. And me and my missus would almost get dressed up. We'd go to the bar. You know, and once the kids were in bed, and we'd have a drink, and we would really tie one on, really have a bevy, and everyone else at home would do the same, and we could be up till like maybe 2 in the morning and stuff like that. Because again, for the same reason, trying to create an event when there is really nothing to do, and it felt a little bit. I suppose that first part of the pandemic, the weather was like this. It wasn't as hopeless. But I think where we started to trail off our drinking was as the summer went to winter, and we still weren't leaving. Me and my missus had to look at ourselves and go, right, okay, I don't think we can continue this lifestyle every weekend going forward. It was having an impact on our weight, on our sleep, on everything really, our mood. We text you with the kids a lot.
Yeah.
And what that really played out and played back to us was something that became more and more evident even as we came out of lockdown, was I guess our bodies aren't able to deal with the drink in the same way again, and I'm seeing that on a lot of my friends. We're getting to that age now, early 40s, where drinking just takes more than it gives. I see my friends saying, oh, cheers lads and all that kind of stuff, but they only have a beer or a wine at the weekend, or a couple. They won't get like blotto or anything like that, because Sunday goes out the window and you might have a lot of responsibilities with the kids. Monday becomes really difficult. If you're in the office, and some people are, it's hard. If you're not in the office, I'd almost argue that it's harder. Because at least when you're in the office, you sort of go, have a shower, sort of have to sort your head out a little bit and get into work mode. When you're at home, you know, having these demands on you, but still being in an environment where you feel like you could be more relaxed is tremendously difficult. And that's why one of the reasons why I always put Mondays as one of my working days is to know that I know I have the kind of personality that will, if I have more than say a couple of drinks, I don't make the best decisions. I'll get to 4, 5, 6 drinks, and that's, I'll drink. So I put things in place to do that, and I think we'll talk about that in a little while and stuff. Yeah.
Guys, just add a couple more, mate, just like that I thought about. And I think, again, it feeds into this idea of having a bit of a break from it and then, you know, reanalysing it. And I think, obviously, now you have a lot of people do things like Dry January, Sober October, another one as well. There might be some others that I'm missing. And I think that probably gives you a taste of what life would be like, you know, without it. And for a lot of people at the start, it's probably thinking, I'll do it for a month, do it for a good cause or whatever. But maybe after that month, it's, well, I've not had the hangovers, I've not had the anxiety after having a drink, obviously saved a few quid probably as well, and it's probably helped them make that change.
You've broken a habit a little bit as well, I think,
Don't you say it takes you about 3 weeks or so to try and build a habit? And I think as well, we're probably remiss to say, I think, because mental health, you know, is its own, it's a massive living, breathing animal, isn't it? It's a huge thing for a lot of people. And if we've got more people suffering with poor mental health, you could argue, well, they will drink more to escape from it. But these people who are maybe a little bit more aware of it and want to make steps to improve their mental health might be thinking, this isn't good, this is something I'm going to have to take away. If I really want to manage this, I'm going to have to stop my alcohol intake. And I know we've mentioned the thing around the anxiety post-drink, the beer, fear. I think for a lot of people it can be even worse than that, and it's not just that day after, it could be 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And before, and again, guilty of this, felt like that, but by the time it's finished, oh, it's the weekend, I'll go again. And it's that, like the analogy I always use of being stuck on a Ferris wheel of this is the same ride again and again, week after week, month after month.
It's terrifying if you think about how much of your life you've done the same cycle of alcohol. And when I think about it, it was every weekend drink. Recover during the week, drink at the weekend, and you only notice it when you stop. Like for me, I suppose the consistency in my mood. Don't get me wrong, we get to the weekend, and this is where I really had to deal with me thinking, and still do. It's a reward. It's my reward for the week, and if I don't have a drink, how am I going to reward myself? What's the point in doing anything if I can't have rewards? And it's having to realise, what am I looking for? I read something or I heard something online about dopamine. So when you take your first drink, it doubles like your dopamine intake, but after 15 minutes it drops off. That's why you're looking for your next drink. If you do the same with, say, other drugs like cocaine, for example, it's like almost, 2.5 times your dopamine, but it drops off after 9 minutes. And again, you'd be chasing that for the evening. Cold water. You do that, you get in your dopamine. It's the same dopamine hit as taking cocaine, but as when it drops off after 9 minutes, it builds and builds for 2 hours. And you're like, well, that's just, so if the chemicals in my brain are servicing that, surely it's just, then it's a perception, isn't it? Everything else is just a perception, isn't it? Where is my reward? How do I change that reward process from alcohol to something else?
I think you've hit on a big thing there with dopamine, mate. And I think obviously for anyone who maybe doesn't know what dopamine is, it's a chemical that's released in our system, and again I believe it's a reward type chemical that makes us feel good. It can be, I suppose you can receive this through good means. Say cold water. I think obviously achieving things, like the one I always think of, having a to-do list and ticking off things you go on, you'll get a dopamine hit. You can get through social media, and obviously, as we say, that's probably one of them ones which is in the middle. Good and bad. But you can get it through drinking, smoking, drugs, gambling is another one. So it's one of them ones I always think comes with a bit of a caution. Dopamine, it is something which is really good. It's addictive, just by its nature. But the way you hack into that, I suppose, is the important part. Cold water, I've seen that one, and I think that's why a lot of people, but I know me and Tom were doing it, you didn't want a coffee after it, even though it was like, maybe 6:30 in the morning, you're like, I feel on top of the world. And again, you'd get it carry you into your work day, and you'd be like, but that was 3-4 hours ago, and I still feel I've still got a bit of a buzz from it. And it's but I think the dopamine one, naturally we want to feel good. And what's the easiest way of doing that? It might be by eating a bit of rubbish food, by having a smoke. How many people go outside, when we used to work in an office or whatever environment, or just go outside for a ciggy. habit to make us feel better for a little while, but then that'll tail off, or then I'll have a bit of rubbish.
That's how we chase
or
it.
We chase. And this is obviously, again, probably could be another episode itself, but an addiction can start stemming from. And if you sort of look at someone's journey, there will be some sort of like form of dopamine chasing that person has got themselves stuck on. Which again, it can transcend many ways of hacking into it.
I think it's probably worth calling out at this point in time when we're talking about drinking and not maybe stopping is like, more realistic. We're obviously not talking about in the extreme. So you mentioned addiction there. If and I think this is really important to say, if you do feel like you're addicted to alcohol or any substance or anything like that, go and get the right help. Stopping is probably the right thing to do, or almost definitely the right thing to do for you. We're just talking about in those less extremes cases, so mild to moderate use of any alcohol or anything like that. This is what we're talking about, so I think it's just worth calling that
100%. Yeah, 100%, mate.
And I don't want to stop anything or stifle anything here, but I feel like we were going to talk about a little bit like why we're starting to tail it off, but it feels like we've naturally covered that a little bit. Why we're sort of tailing off. Is there anything you want to add to that? Why you're sort of starting to reduce your alcohol intake for you?
I think there was definitely a conversation me and Paul had probably in October last year, where it was probably the week after we'd been out drinking, and there was just some real questions around why that cycle was in place, even though I think alcohol intake and kind of the frequency of these nights out or blowouts or whatever you want to call them had decreased. There's a question there as to why do we do it at all? And I know for me it was, I think there's a direct relationship between how much kind of purpose I've got at that moment in time, or how driven I am to reach something or achieve something, and the level of alcohol that I'm intaking. So I think in order to reduce that alcohol intake, other things have to become present or increase. So building Pendulum, aiming for a different job, trying to do more activities in terms of physical activity across the weekend as well. I think though all those increasing just result in alcohol falling away anyway. So I think that would be it for me. I've never really sat down and said, I need to stop drinking alcohol or I need to reduce my alcohol intake, but it comes as a byproduct from just increasing the other positive things in your life as well.
Yeah.
That'll hopefully now that'll just continue and grow to the point where the alcohol frequency just disappears altogether, because there's so many positive things going on.
You're getting that dopamine in other ways.
Yeah, that's it. And I think for the dopamine system that we have built inside us, even like from an evolutionary standpoint, is there to reward you for moving towards a valued goal. Back in the day, that would have been hunting. So I know when I've listened to stories of people when they go hunting or go fishing, when you catch that animal, the dopamine feeling and the feeling of reward and success is like off the charts, because evolutionarily that's what the system is actually in us for. When we move towards something that will help us like survive, evolve, reproduce, feel safe, that's when we get these big uplifts of dopamine. All the things that we've spoken about so far, it's like the modern day way of hijacking that system, almost. Like we spoke about drugs. I suppose the porn is the modern day way of replacing sex. We've got video games, we've got social media. All these things are hijacking that same system. So if we can satisfy that system through achieving our goals, exercising, building relationships, I suppose cold water's a bit of a hack, but it's a healthy one. The more we can satisfy that system in a positive way, the less that we then need to look at really destructive ways of satisfying it. So that's kind of where I am with it now. It's okay, the more I can satisfy that through positive action, the less demand I have for chasing it through drink, drugs, and all the other things that go with it that I've just mentioned there. So that would be what's caused the tail off for me. It's just doing more that actually makes me happy.
Paul, same question, I guess.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't got up to Tom, man. That was I think,
he's
just to your point there, I actually think cold water is probably, if you're going to jump in a lake and do wild swimming or go into, some water, I think that is quite, for me, that's what the cavemen used to do, that's what we used to do prehistorically. Yeah. So I would say that is a natural one. I think if you're just going to jump into a shower or you've got to plunge in your garden, that is a little bit, but it's still, something which is amazing. But no, I echo, a lot of the sentiments from Tom there. And obviously, I spent a lot of time with Tom during these periods during lockdown because we work for the same company, so we're able to, get out and exercise and probably replace some of these drinking situations with healthier habits, and actually you really enjoy them, and they remain permanent. I think for me, what I'd say as well is that a lot of the people that I surround myself with, they're all moving on stages of their life where maybe relationships become more serious. People are looking to start their own families, get married, maybe take their careers more seriously, whatever it is. So naturally for them, they're the most important goals. And I don't know, as a father, you might have a different view on this, but when they're getting to this stage, it's drink isn't going to enhance or help me in this situation. Maybe once you've had the kid and they're up all night and whatever, you might think, bloody hell, I'll have a drink now. But I just think a lot of the people who are in my life now are moving on and things become a little bit more serious. So don't get me wrong, when we do have a drink, it might be an occasion, a birthday, a wedding or whatever it might be. But it's not for nothing. It's not just that Friday going out for no particular reason. It's just more, there'll be a reason why. I suppose it's an occasion to have a drink. And I think that's like where I'm at now. I can accept that, but I also have to accept as well the next day you're probably going to feel not so good. The days before it, you might have to look at, and obviously we'll get into that a little bit earlier, but with like tips for people and things. But I think a lot of the people I spend my time with now have moved on a little bit as well. So naturally you think I could be the other side of that, and we don't want to be on the as an outcast, do we? So naturally you move with the people in your network, what they're doing as well. Anything from, like, last bits from yourself, mate? Maybe why?
I think for me, I think what you've talked about, we're in different stages of our life, and I've got two young lads. I think it's just not sustainable to be able to have a drink and be present very often. And I know we will do that, and we might, if we're lucky and the in-laws take the kids and stuff, we might be able to have a bit of a sleep in the next day, although I've given away my sleeping this morning for this. So again, to Tom's point, having a bit of a purpose and having lads rely on you, people rely on you before an event or something's going on, I think really helps as well for me. And I'll be honest, just from a health point of view, I'm not getting any younger. I've been to the doctors, I've spoke to them, and I'm now in the place in my life where I'm going to have to naturally start curtailing that, because I can't rely on the old immune system as much. I can't rely on the metabolism as much. Processing food, alcohol, everything becomes more difficult as you get older, and that's just a fact of life. So naturally curtailing that, as opposed to maybe going towards or heading towards like a area catastrophe, I guess, is prominent on my mind. It's something that I think about quite a lot. Okay, I think you've hinted at a few things. I think it's probably a good time for us to get into this now. It's talking about the stuff that you've put in place yourself, or recommendations for other people to maybe put in place if they want to start reducing that alcohol intake. So where should we start, Paul? You feel like
I don't mind. Yeah, so I think this is one thing that we spoke about a little bit earlier on in the podcast, was that it's the questions that you get from people when you say you're not drinking tonight or you're driving or whatever. That was one of the things for me, is that when I find myself in certain situations and environments, it's just a given, you're going to have to drink, even if I don't want to, I'll have to have one at least, or whatever it is. And I suppose to try and combat that, again, sorry lads, most time I go out now, it's not with you, it's with my missus, or it's with, you know, some other friends. I have to speak to them and say this is how I'm feeling a little bit. But also, you know, you try and take some of your learns from other areas of your life. So, you know, when you're having difficult conversations, maybe in work, when you know, obviously we've managed people in the past and maybe you have to have conversations you don't want to have, or with family, you try and, you know, give a bit of rationale and also say, listen, I'm not enjoying this, by the way, but I feel I have to have this conversation. So it's taking some of them learns when you're speaking to the people around you and say, you know, the days after it, I do feel a bit anxious, and then that tails on for the rest of the week. And if it is, you know, my partner, I say, you will see a different version of me for 2-3 days, and I probably won't be a nice person to be around because I'm just feeling low, no energy, I don't want to do anything. Again, in work, it'll have an impact, blah, blah, blah. And thankfully, I'll be honest, my partner feels the same with her relationship with drink as well. It has reduced, but when she does drink, doesn't feel any better for it. Feels that trade-off is not worth it. So I think you'd be surprised when you speak to people, there is other people out there who feel the same. Yeah. And it's best to have this conversation before you're in the pub or before you're in the bar or whatever, because if it happens then, I think it's more likely to just get battered off. Whereas if you're having the conversation beforehand, rational thinking, I think will generally tend to kick in. I'll just pause for a breath to feel like you've got something to say.
Just because you raised a good point, I think we should maybe put it into little areas. I think that a lot of how to curb your drinking comes in the pre-activity. Pre-activity. So I think one thing you talked about is manage other people's expectations there of what's going to happen. What else would you put in that pre-area? What other things might you want to do before drinking that will help you curtail it?
I think I will let you speak, Tom. I think there's tons of stuff. So I think for me, again, speaking from my own perspective, like Monday to Friday, generally train every day. Mm-hmm. So I think if it's one, so say for example, it's one of them situations where you've got to say to yourself, right, I am going to have a drink. Maybe it's a family wedding, or it's a birthday, or you know, a music concert, whatever, something you're really excited for. Okay, accept it, own it, you're going to do it, and you're going to enjoy it. But pre and post, you're going to have to, you know, maybe suffer for it a little bit. So, you know, maybe with your diet and your nutrition, maybe cut back a little bit that week, maybe increase the exercise a little bit. And I'm speaking from a point of view there, there's someone who's been trying to maintain your weight or keep a healthy weight. So at least, you know, I think that's another thing. When you have a drink, people think, oh, I can't put all that weight on now. So if you can maybe reduce that impact as well and earn it in the days before, I think as well, just maybe getting to a little bit more of a granular level. I think we all know that one of the reasons you get hungover is that you're massively dehydrated. So in the days before, make sure that you are hydrated. The day of it, make sure you're hydrated, take your electrolytes. If you like things like Lucozade Sport or whatever, take them because it will hydrate you and you will notice a little bit of a difference the next day because you are hydrated. And again, sorry for the squeamish, but make sure you know you're hydrated, just look at your weight. Yeah. It's clear, you're good, if it's any other colour. Yeah. You need to get more in. So I think for me, just that's what works for me anyway. It's just ultimately accepting that you're going to do it. Don't feel bad about it. Enjoy it. But then do a little bit of that work that you know that's going to help you in your head. Think, you know what, I've earned it. Mm-hmm. Don't just treat it as a normal week. Maybe earn it a little bit. Mm. If you can't do that, because I know sometimes, I think we spoke about this a couple of days ago, sometimes the drink's just thrust upon you. Yeah. In a situation, you're a bit like, I think the example you used is maybe you were away and like a friend's come to surprise and you think, you know, I might not get many opportunities like this anymore. Not accept it, go for it. But it's that, what we just spoke about there, you might have to do after it. For a couple of days. It might not be too good. Right, I'll pause now, mate. Go on.
So what are your stuff that you put in place before a drink, or what put in place to stop you drinking, or what have you?
I think driving is the obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've started to say if I'm going anywhere or I'm going somewhere where alcohol might be involved, I'll just drive now.
Mm-hmm.
That immediately
cuts out that argument, doesn't it?
Cuts it out, yeah.
As long as we mitigate, obviously, no drinking and driving. Obviously.
Yeah, of course, no drinking and driving. But I think particularly if you know it's quite a distance away, you're not going to want to pay 30-40 quid for an Uber as well, which adds on to it. If it's round the corner, there's always still that temptation. But I think driving is definitely one. I think just in terms of why you're drinking, I think, well, rightly or wrongly, I think we spoke about the million and one things that alcohol seems to have attached itself to now. There's sport, going out for dinner, celebrating, commiserating, everything in between. Yeah. So I think for my approach towards alcohol now, it's okay, if I'm celebrating, I can understand it. Because, again, rightly or wrongly, when you're out celebrating, whether it's a birthday, an engagement, a wedding, wetting the baby's head, which at this age now this seems to be the one that's probably going to be most prominent over the coming years when people are having kids. Yeah. If I'm not celebrating something, what am I actually drinking for? Mm-hmm. And we've mentioned escapism already on the podcast, and if I'm not celebrating, it's very likely I'm using it as a form of escapism or social lubrication, as I think I've heard it called before. If I'm drinking for either of those purposes, whether it's escapism or trying to be just more socially lubricated, why do I need to do that? And I think that comes back again to putting things in place where you don't feel like you have to escape as much. And if I need to be more like relaxed, and who are the people I'm around? I'm really fortunate. I have people in my life now that I see a lot more when not drinking than when drinking. Mm-hmm. Those same people, it never actually used to be the case. The people I'm really close with, probably our relationships were built on drinking and going out. Yeah. Unfortunately, through the last couple of years, we've changed what we do when we're seeing each other. So that mindset of, okay, I'm celebrating or I'm escaping, and if I'm escaping, I need to address that. So anytime I go out now drinking, where it's not a celebration, where people are getting together and having some good times around an event, I reflect on it, or even just look forward to it. And I look forward to that, and I think, why am I going out drinking? Yeah, I'm not celebrating anything, so what am I escaping from? Who are the people I'm going to be around that I feel the need to drink around? So they'll be driving, having a different mindset, and make plans every weekend as much as you can. This on a Saturday morning that we do, 6 till 9 every weekend, I can't go out drinking Friday night. No chance. It's hard. It's tough enough anyway on the sick day of the week, getting up at 5 o'clock. But Sunday, tomorrow, I've got the next 2 days off. I'm going hiking with him tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. We're going to Wales and we're going to go hiking, which means I'm driving at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we've got a long day out. Can't drink tonight. Yeah. Monday, I've got the whole morning and day, ideas thrown about with my partner on what we're going to do Monday. Can't have a drink Sunday either. So before we know it, I've not made the intentional decision. I'm not drinking this weekend, but I've packed a weekend full of things that I'm really looking forward to, and alcohol would ruin that. So alcohol's not even an option for this weekend. Yeah,
not putting it on the shelf.
Yeah, I suppose we're like reverse engineering it. Mm-hmm. Just put loads of things in place where alcohol just isn't a feasible option anymore. I find that's a much better, even just for all negative habits, not just alcohol. I think if you've got a negative habit that you're trying to break, don't just focus on breaking that habit, focus on implementing things that are going to just result in that falling away. It might be eating unhealthy, it might be going to bed too late every night, it might be alcohol, it might be another substance. Throw any more negative habits out there that you want. If you can just implement something else that's healthier, that will push that aside, I think it's a much better strategy.
Accelerate the positives, really, really good. Yeah. There's something I want to pick on here. There's an underlying theme, really, and it's a really important one, I think, to highlight. It all starts with the question of self. Whether it's you're asking yourself, do I want to feel like this again? How am I going to feel this weekend? What am I going into this weekend to do? it all seems to start with questioning yourself. So I guess one of the things we'll say is you've got to do a bit of that self-examination to start with, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think for me, and Tom, I don't want to cut you off. Is there anything else before I just talked through a couple of bits? Is there anything else that you
nothing else, mate. I think we find ourselves a lot on autopilot now, and used the word reactive before.
Yeah.
I was literally listening to someone talk about this yesterday. Stephen Bartlett had a guy called Rich Rowland, who was an alcoholic until his early 40s, and then he became an Ironman and an ultra distance athlete. And he said, you just go through life reactively. You have your set things that you have to do. You do them, and anything else that comes your way, you'll bat off and deal with. I think it's once you start living on a more proactive basis, where you're actually looking at things and you think, right, I've got these things I have to do. What else am I going to start doing to maybe maximise, my just overall experience, or improve things for me and me family and my partner? And then once you start to do that, I think then the likes of going out drinking and alcohol and late nights as well will fall away, mate, once you start being just more proactive with how you're going to approach your life.
Yeah, I think asking those questions, and one of those things, and as I said to you, and I think you picked up on a really good point there, I think even in my late 20s into 30s, I was very much reactive to things I had to do, where, definitely I've got to work on my job, I've got to make sure that I get enough shopping in, I've got to make sure that the bills are covered. But after that, the weekends were my own, and I was kind of drifting towards whatever was going on, or what have you, and not trying to be purposeful in my actions. My relationship with food and alcohol has been a challenging one, and still one that I work on at the moment. My wife is, and you've heard me talk about my wife a few times, she's so much better at focusing on a topic, working at it, understanding it and unpicking it. And she's been working and talking to me about how I self-talk around food, alcohol. She has this incredible ability to go, I'm not going to drink this weekend, or she'll go, I'll have 4 drinks when we go out to that thing. And she puts a number on it. And that's because she's been working at going, 4 drinks will get me maybe tipsy, I'll have a bit of fun, but it won't impact me in the long term, and she'll stick to it. She has a plan going into that, and she sticks to it. We've also been trialling and with different degrees of success, non-alcoholic drinks, over the weekend, to get that feeling like you're having a drink, but actually without all of the impact of it and stuff like that. And we found really that drinking tonic, just having a bit of tonic water, slimline tonic, it's almost satisfies that same ability to have a grown-up drink. Like ginger ale is another one. It's got a little bit of a kick to it, but it's not really an alcoholic drink. So being able to think about things and purposefully put things into place a little bit like that, where you feel like you're still having a little bit of a relaxation, a good time, an adult time, but actually you're not really having an impact on the weekend, the next day, the week, all of the things that an old man has to think about, cholesterol, blood pressure, all of that kind of stuff. And that really helps for me. So being a little bit more purposeful and shaking hands with, I suppose, some of those inner thoughts around food. Food's reward, alcohol's reward. What are you trying to get from the reward? What are you really looking and searching for when you go into the fridge, when you go into the bar, when you go into, the alcohol and stuff like that? You're just hoping to relax, aren't you? You're just hoping to feel maybe like the weekend has begun. That, and kids compound that a little bit sometimes. They add to weekly stress. So when you get to the weekend, you really want that release. So I've started trying things like grounding myself in the grass at the weekend. I know it sounds silly, but when it's sunny like it is today, going out into my garden, putting my feet in the grass and feeling the sunshine on my face for like 40 minutes has a really rejuvenating effect for me. So doing things like that, obviously the gym with you guys, and I think you said as well, you put me through my paces a few times, Tom, and you, Paul, and I've come out the other end, staggering out to the gym, an hour later, 2 hours later, I feel great. I'm in the car, I've got the music on, I'm singing, and I'm just feeling top of the world and stuff like that, and trying to be present in that moment and go, this feels really good. Remember this thought, try and reprogram your thoughts to go, you're not getting this feeling, even when you in alcohol, even with the best bit of alcohol, when you maybe 2 or 3 drinks in and you're feeling a little bit tipsy and all that, it still hasn't got the same feeling or effect as being sober and being able to sing at the top of your voice, because you're just absolutely buzzing with energy. So those are the kinds of things that I've been trying to put in place a little bit. Anything you want to add up before we round up, lads? Is there anything else that you want to chat through?
There's one there I think you've hinted at there, which I think is really good, is that you've been able to recreate the same experience with your missus by drinking non-alcoholic drinks. Even if that's not your thing, you don't want to do it, you want to drink at all, you can still recreate these experiences, these feelings, whether it's with your friends, whether it's your family, by just changing the activity and not drinking. You could go hiking, you could go for a walk.
Yeah.
You could, I think obviously we are big protagonists of nature, but if that's not, go to the theatre, do something different. Yeah. For me, my belief is the reason why we go out and do these things, it's for the connection, being around other people and sharing experience with them. Obviously alcohol can enhance that, but even if you take the alcohol away, the experience will still be, then chemical reactions do still happen. So you can, we're not just saying you have to give up alcohol, give up going out and do it. No, you can still go out and do things, but it's just obviously that element has been taken away. Like I know, like what one thing like me and the lads do now, we'll go have a breakfast. We wouldn't have done that 5 years ago, but no, we'll just meet up and have a brekkie. Before you know it, you're still having a laugh, you're still having you come away thinking it was good to see the lads, but actually it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I've still got the rest of the day, the rest of my weekend, I'll go to the gym now, or I could do this. It's not that thing of it being the next morning, like, but it was good to see them, but I don't want to see them from the 2 months, because that was heavy last night. So
we swap alcohol for caffeine, don't we?
Yeah,
but it's a much healthier swap over, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a case of that you have to cut everyone out or change things drastically. You can still spend time with people and do things socially, but you maybe just have to think about, well, what is it that I enjoy doing? So for us it is maybe hiking or exercise, or sometimes it's just, I just want to chill with the lads and just talk a bit of rubbish. Okay, go for the brekkie or go for your lunch or something.
You raise a good point there. I'd like to dig into a point a little bit. This is when people come with you on that journey though, isn't it? This is when people talk, when you talk to them and they're your friends and they do that. What happens if the alternate happens and those people are not on that journey yet and they only want to meet you and only want to have a drink and they're getting into you about it? What happens then?
I think fortunately, because again, me and Tom share the similar, they've been at a space where they either understand it, or if they don't, I think they value the friendship enough of, okay, I'd rather have a drink, but I want to see this person. And I think it does make you think, you have got a good mate there, that they understand that I probably don't really want to go out drinking anymore, but they still want to make the effort. So I think, I'm fortunate that I've not had that situation where maybe I've had to, cut people out. In that sense, I would imagine if that was the case where you're on this journey but someone wants to remain in it, you might eventually drift a little bit. Unfortunately, that could happen. But again, I know my nature. I'd want to dig into that person, but okay, I don't want this to come between us. But are you okay, by the way? You know what I mean? Is there something you'd maybe like to talk about? Or is that, and again, reiterate that message of, it's not that I'm never going to go out and not bevy with you again, but just not as regularly. And if we're going to, maybe see each other, okay, come round and watch the football, which is going to be one of them. This is one thing I was going to say, we need to maybe at times revisit certain social interactions that we have that have always had alcohol. So if you go into a pub, you don't have to have a drink. You could go in, have a soft drink and watch the football. If you really want to see your friends, or if you got people around to your house, you can just put the box up, whatever it is, and not drink. That is allowed too. But on that point, mate, I think that's a difficult one, because ultimately I think it could lead to a bit of a drift, because your priorities maybe are different, and I think we could all relate to that in a way that maybe along the way there is some friends that we've just lost contact with, and it might not be because of booze, by the way, but just because priorities in life has led us down different paths. I don't know about you, Tom, but on that one, what do you think?
Probably similar to yourself, mate. I've never had too much pushback, and I think as well, like, again, we're in the similar stage of life where my friends are having kids, or they're pushing on with the career or the relationship, so quite fortunate in that respect that it's never caused any conflict for me, to be honest. I still have a couple of mates who they do ask about going out drinking maybe more frequently than I would like to, but I think what you can do there is again, going back to being proactive. If you're messaging your mate every couple of weeks, I have a very small core group of friends that I like to see once a week. That's just part of my weekly I suppose that's part of my well-being, is to see this very small kind of core group of friends. And if I drop them a message on the Tuesday or Wednesday saying, do you want to go for a walk, or do you want to grab a coffee at the weekend, the plan's set then. There's no waiting around for them to ask me to go for a drink. It's, well, do you want to do this, that, this, A, B or C, and then that's it, you're committed to doing that thing then. So I think if you have got friends who do like to go out drinking, it's not a problem. I think one thing just to probably say to people who are listening, if you are still within this cycle of drinking, maybe more frequent than you'd like to, don't beat yourself up about it, but just see where you can make changes yourself and make the changes that will work for you. And see the people who are doing it. We all share it on social media. Everyone knows which people are out on a Sunday morning running or walking or getting outdoors, or on a Saturday as well. If they're your mates, or maybe you've drifted from them, or you're an acquaintance but you aren't very close. If you see people doing positive things on the weekend, go and get in touch with them. Try and attack it, even if you're not directly friends with them. See if you can start doing things with people who are doing positive things on the weekend. And in time, then that'll just become more natural for you to start doing those things as well. That would be kind of the final tip from me. If you're in that kind of cycle, maybe don't try and do it alone. Don't say, I'm going to start going running every Sunday morning, or I'm going to go hiking. Just have a look for the people in your kind of vicinity who are doing these things already, and go and get involved with them.
It's a great tip. And probably maybe a great place for us to finish with that really nice hopeful message. So again, before we finish, if you are really struggling with alcohol or substance abuse in any kind, please do look at how you can get support. We'll probably maybe put some links underneath the video for you to go at. Otherwise, just to sum up, I guess, be present, be thoughtful about what you're doing, surround yourself with the people who echo that kind of thing, and take those steps little and often to just sort of improve. Thanks very much, lads. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, lads.
And thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
And that was this week's podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out our socials for more information from Pendulum Growth. Thanks and goodbye for now.